On January 5, 2026, a bluefin tuna crossed the auction floor in Tokyo for 510 million yen, about $3.2 million. It was not the price of an ordinary fish or one meal. The New Year auction is part market, part ceremony, and part publicity. But the number revealed what sushi had become, a food capable of turning one animal into a global status symbol. Its oldest ancestors looked nothing like that. Fish was packed in cooked rice and salt, sealed away, and left for months while acid-producing microbes kept putrefaction at bay. The rice could break down enough to be discarded. This was fermentation, not rot, but to a modern nose, the difference might feel thin. How did food designed to survive without refrigeration become an emblem of freshness, precision, and extreme price? The answer is not one invention. It is a repeated war against time. Long before sushi meant a polished counter and a knife moving under white light, it answered a harsher question: how do you keep a fish after the fish should have spoiled? One likely trail begins in the rice-growing regions of Southeast Asia and southern China, where inland communities had freshwater fish, seasonal catches, heat, and no mechanical refrigeration. Cooked rice was not merely served beside the fish, it became part of a preservation system. Fish was cleaned, salted, pressed into rice, and kept where air could not easily reach it. Inside that packed container, lactic acid bacteria consumed sugars and changed the environment. The rising acidity discouraged many organisms responsible for putrefaction. The fish changed texture and flavor, but it could last. This is the first correction to the popular story. The fish was not carelessly allowed to decay. People were managing decay with the biological tools available to them. The technique appears to have moved with wet rice cultivation and regional trade. In Japan, references to preserved fish preparations appear in records from the ancient and early medieval periods. The exact route is uncertain, and no single village can honestly be called the birthplace. What survives is the logic: rice could protect fish even when the rice itself was not the prized result. At Lake Biwa, a form known as funazushi preserves that older logic. Crucian carp are salted, then packed with rice for long fermentation. In traditional versions, the process can take many months. Open the container, and the aroma announces itself before the fish does. The modern diner may think of strong cheese. A less charitable diner may think something has gone wrong. But nothing had gone wrong. The smell was evidence of transformation, and the transformation bought time. This was not fast food, it was stored value. A catch taken in one season could be carried, taxed, presented, or eaten later. The fish survived the journey because microbes, salt, pressure, and human patience had rearranged it. That is the first state of sushi, not raw, not luxurious, and not even necessarily served with rice. It was fish made durable. And durability created a new problem. Once people learned to preserve fish for months, they began trying to get the same result without waiting so long. By around the 15th century, some Japanese makers were shortening fermentation. Instead of waiting until the rice had nearly dissolved, they opened the vessel earlier. The fish was less aggressively transformed, and the rice was still pleasant enough to eat. This change sounds small. It was not. Rice moved from disposable preserving material to part of the dish. The new forms did not erase older sushi. Food history rarely works like a clean replacement. Long fermented preparations continued in some places while quicker versions appeared elsewhere. The result was a widening family of methods: different fish, different salting periods, different amounts of pressure, and different decisions about when the food was ready. That decision, when is it ready, changed who could make sushi and why. A product that required months belonged to the rhythm of seasons, storage rooms, and advanced planning. A product ready in weeks could answer a market more quickly. It could respond to appetite rather than only necessity. The rice also carried more than flavor. It carried cost. Producing polished rice required land, water, labor, milling, and political control. In early modern Japan, rice was tied to taxation and status. Using it around fish, then throwing much of it away, made sense only because preservation created value of its own. Eating the rice brought that value back onto the plate. For an ordinary household, this was a practical transformation. Imagine opening a container and finding not one usable food but two, sharp, sour rice and preserved fish. The meal had become more complete. The preservative had become edible. Yet time remained the main ingredient. Even shortened fermentation was fermentation. The decisive break came when cooks found a way to imitate its sourness without waiting for microbes to produce it. The shortcut was vinegar. In the growing cities of early modern Japan, especially Edo, time had a different price. By the 18th century, Edo was one of the largest cities in the world. Craftspeople, laborers, merchants, samurai, and travelers needed food that could be bought and eaten between obligations. Rice vinegar allowed cooks to season cooked rice directly. The sourness that once signaled months of biological change could now be added in minutes. Fermentation had not vanished from Japanese food, but sushi no longer depended on it. This was a technological revolution disguised as seasoning. Early quick sushi took several forms. In the Kansai region, fish and vinegared rice could be pressed into molds. In Edo, sellers adapted the fish available from nearby waters what came to be associated with edomae, the waters in front of the city. At the turn of the 19th century, hand-formed nigiri appeared, a small mass of seasoned rice topped with fish or shellfish. The identity of one inventor is disputed. Hanaya Yohei is often credited, but other names and earlier precedents remain in the record. The more reliable story is larger than one genius. A city, a fish market, a vinegar supply, street commerce, and generations of cooks made the form possible. And Edo nigiri was not a celebration of untouched raw fish. Without modern refrigeration, toppings were often simmered, salted, marinated in soy sauce, or cured with vinegar. These treatments added flavor, but they also bought precious hours. Wasabi and soy became part of a system in which taste and preservation overlapped. A vendor could shape rice, add a prepared topping, and hand the food to a customer. The customer did not need a dining room, a long wait, or even chopsticks. Sushi had become urban fast food. That reversal is easy to miss. The original technique slowed spoilage by making fish wait for months. Edo sushi sped service by compressing preservation into preparation. The food still fought time, but it had changed sides. It now served the clock of the city. This is also where the modern image of sushi begins to deceive us. We often treat freshness as the absence of intervention. Edo cooks knew the opposite. Freshness was produced through intervention, choosing, cutting, curing, simmering, marinating, and serving before the window closed. The craft was not simply placing raw fish on rice, it was managing the interval between water and mouth. Then, a disaster broke the city that had refined that interval and helped carry its version of sushi across Japan. On September 1, 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake struck Tokyo and Yokohama. Buildings collapsed, fires spread through neighborhoods, markets, homes, and businesses were destroyed. More than 100,000 people were killed or listed as missing. Among those displaced were sushi cooks. Some rebuilt in Tokyo. Others carried their skills, preferences, and idome methods to different parts of Japan. A catastrophe did not single-handedly nationalize nigiri, but it accelerated the movement of people who knew how to make it. The larger transformation came from infrastructure. Railways moved fish farther and faster. Manufactured ice and mechanical refrigeration lengthened the safe window. Electric cold storage separated sushi from the immediate geography of a local bay. A topping did not have to be caught within sight of the customer. After the Second World War, regulation, scarcity, and rebuilding reshaped the trade again. Sushi shifted between street stalls, shops, counters, and restaurants. The counter placed the cook in view. Preparation became performance, a knife angle, a brush of sauce, the pressure of fingers on rice. Then, in Osaka in 1958, conveyor belt sushi turned that performance into a moving system. Plates circulated past customers. The color or pattern of a plate could signal its price. Diners chose without placing a formal order, and restaurants served more people with less friction. The format spread widely after the Osaka Expo of 1970. The conveyor belt did for service what vinegar had done for fermentation. It compressed time. By this point, sushi's real history was becoming visible. Its transformations were not a straight march from primitive food to refined cuisine. Each stage solved a bottleneck. Fermentation extended the life of fish. Vinegar shortened the wait. Curing protected a street seller's inventory. Refrigeration extended geography. The conveyor belt accelerated choice. At the midpoint of the story, sushi is no longer best understood as raw fish. It is a machine for controlling time. That machine was about to leave Japan. But to succeed abroad, sushi would have to survive something more difficult than distance: suspicion. Japanese immigrants carried food traditions to the United States long before sushi became fashionable. For much of the 20th century, however, sushi remained closely associated with Japanese and Japanese-American communities. Raw seafood, dark sheets of nori, unfamiliar etiquette, and memories of wartime hostility all shaped the distance many American diners felt from it. In Los Angeles, that distance became a design problem. The California roll emerged in Little Tokyo during the 1960s or 1970s. Its exact inventor and date are disputed. That uncertainty matters because the roll was probably less a single flash of inspiration than a cluster of adaptations. Avocado offered richness. Crab or imitation crab offered familiarity. Cucumber offered crunch. And in the inside-out roll, or uramaki, rice covered the nori rather than the other way around. The seaweed had not disappeared. It had been hidden. This was culinary translation through architecture. A customer could see white rice on the outside, encounter recognizable ingredients, and learn the texture of sushi without beginning with raw fish. The form reduced risk for the diner while preserving enough of the roll's structure to open the door. Was that an authentic evolution or a commercial compromise? The question assumes food must choose. Sushi had been compromising with time, place, and appetite for centuries. Vinegar was a compromise. Marinated tuna was a compromise. A conveyor belt was a compromise. Adaptation was not a betrayal of sushi's history. Adaptation was its history. American demand grew through restaurants, media, travel, rising interest in Japanese design, and the expansion of reliable cold chains. Supermarkets later placed packaged rolls under clear plastic. An object once handed directly from cook to diner could now sit under fluorescent light with a printed timestamp. The spread also changed what people believed sushi represented. It could signal cosmopolitan taste, health consciousness, adventurousness, or professional status. Business lunches and date nights gave it new social meanings. Those meanings did not belong to the fish. They were attached by the people buying it. But one ingredient gained a special power in this new market. It had once been cheap, unstable, and sometimes disfavored. Global sushi would help turn it into treasure. That ingredient was tuna. Today, fatty bluefin belly toro can appear inevitable at the center of elite sushi. Historically, it was not. In 19th century Edo, tuna did not automatically command prestige. Its flesh spoiled quickly, and the fattiest cuts were difficult to keep. Leaner meat could be marinated in soy sauce. Fatty portions were less practical in a world without reliable refrigeration. Value followed what the system could preserve. Cold technology changed the calculation. Ice plants, refrigerated ships, freezers, aircraft, and faster distribution allowed high-fat tuna to travel farther without collapsing into waste. The very quality that once made toro troublesome, its rich fat, became desirable when the supply chain could protect it. By the late 20th century, an international market linked fishing grounds, air cargo routes, wholesalers, auction houses, and sushi counters. Tuna caught thousands of miles from Japan could arrive in time for sale. A fish became a financial object before it became a meal, graded by color, fat, texture, origin, handling, and anticipated demand. The transformation was cultural as well as technical. Diners learned that toro was rare and luxurious. Chefs learned how to present its marbling. Restaurants built tasting menus in which a progression of bites could rise toward richer cuts. Scarcity and prestige reinforced each other. Then came the spectacle of the New Year auction. The record 2026 fish weighed 243 kilograms, or 535 pounds. Its 510 million yen price was far above an ordinary commercial valuation. The buyer, the Sushi Zanmai restaurant chain, gained worldwide attention. The auction produced publicity, ceremony, and a story of good fortune. Dividing the price by a theoretical number of servings may create a dramatic number, but it does not reveal the market price of a normal sushi meal. So the original title promise requires a final correction. Sushi did not literally become the world's most expensive meal. One tuna became the world's most expensive bluefin sold at auction under unusual ceremonial conditions. The corrected story is more revealing. A preservation food became so powerful as a symbol that a buyer could spend millions not only for flesh, but for the attention attached to it. What happens when a species becomes both dinner and advertisement? Bluefin tuna are built for motion. Pacific bluefin can cross the ocean, covering thousands of miles between feeding and spawning grounds. That mobility once made the population appear inexhaustible. Industrial fishing showed otherwise. High prices rewarded better detection, larger fleets, more efficient gear, and fishing across a tuna's range. Young fish could be caught before reproducing. Demand for sushi was not the only pressure, but it became one of the most visible engines of value. By the early 2010s, scientific assessments estimated Pacific bluefin spawning biomass at only a small fraction of the level expected, without fishing around 2% in the worst recent years. This was the hidden cost behind abundance at the counter. A diner saw one perfect slice. The ocean absorbed the accumulated effect of millions of choices, many made far from view. The story did not end in collapse. International catch limits, monitoring, changes in fishing pressure, and coordinated management helped the stock begin a substantial recovery. By 2022, estimates placed spawning biomass above 20% of the unfished level. That did not make every ecological concern disappear, and different bluefin populations face different conditions. It did show that a luxury market is not a law of nature. Rules can change incentives. Sushi's safety systems also became more explicit. Freezing requirements and parasite controls made many forms of raw service safer, while hygiene and temperature remained essential because freezing does not erase every microbial risk. The modern sushi counter rests on invisible standards, cold storage, inspection, species identification, handling records, and trained judgment. This is the modern contradiction. Sushi is praised for simplicity precisely because an enormous system hides behind it. A piece of nigiri may contain only rice, vinegar, fish, and a brush of sauce. Behind that piece can stand a fishing quota, a freezer specification, a cargo flight, an auction, a wholesaler, a chef's apprenticeship, and a consumer trained to read marbling as status. The old fermented fish announced its preservation with a powerful smell. Modern sushi hides preservation inside infrastructure. Walk into a convenience store in Tokyo, a supermarket in California, or a restaurant in Dubai, and sushi now describes products that share a lineage but not a single standard of experience. One version is prepared behind a small counter and served seconds after it is shaped. Another moves past on a belt. Another waits in a refrigerator under plastic. Another arrives through a delivery app. Some use local fish. Others depend on global air freight. Some follow strict seasonal choices. Others promise the same menu every week of the year. The industrial challenge is no longer merely how to preserve fish, it is how to manufacture the feeling of freshness across distance. Packaging controls moisture and protects shape. Refrigerated cases hold a narrow temperature range. Labels convert safety into a deadline. Supply contracts aim for consistency. In some markets, machines portion rice or assist with forming it. The final product may still look handmade because the visual language of sushi clean lines, small portions, visible ingredients carries the idea of care. That idea can be true. It can also conceal labor. Fishing crews, processing workers, cargo handlers, cleaners, rice farmers, delivery drivers, and kitchen staff all contribute to the bite. The chef is visible because the counter frames the chef. Most of the supply chain remains off-stage. Sushi's prestige also creates a hierarchy of authenticity. A low-cost roll may be dismissed as fake, while an expensive omakase is treated as pure tradition. History makes that boundary difficult to defend. Sushi has never stopped changing. The more useful questions are, who made the change, what problem it solved, and who paid for the solution. Fermentation demanded time. Vinegar replaced time with an ingredient. Refrigeration replaced local limits with energy and infrastructure. Global luxury replaced preservation value with symbolic value. Each solution created a new dependency. And every version still returns to the same ancient anxiety: fish does not wait. The oldest sushi turned fresh fish into preserved fish. Edo sushi turned preserved flavor into urban speed. Industrial sushi turned speed into distance. Luxury sushi turned distance and scarcity into status. That is how a food once sealed away for months came to represent something served at the exact second it is ready. The next time a supermarket tray clicks open or a chef places one piece across a counter, the object may look almost empty. Rice, fish, perhaps a streak of wasabi. But its simplicity is engineered. The sour rice remembers fermentation. The prepared topping remembers a city without refrigerators. The cold flesh remembers aircraft, freezers, rules, and oceans under pressure. Sushi did not escape preservation. It made preservation invisible. And the $3 million tuna was not valuable because it forgot that history. It was valuable because centuries of people learned how to defeat the clock long enough to turn a perishable fish into a symbol. Which transformation changed sushi most? Vinegar, refrigeration, or the inside-out roll? Share your choice and the reason for it in the comments.